This is ContactTalkRadio.com. Consciousness in action. And you are taking action into your consciousness by tuning into Contact Talk Radio.
And on TuneIn.com, Hing.fm, and UpSnap Mobile.
Contact Talk Radio. Welcome to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. Joan and Janet are subtle energy empaths who navigate consciousness. Their passion is to support you in your evolution. As consciousness, we are all one. One mind, one heart, free of all limitations. Experience this reality with us and discover how it can make a difference in your daily living. Join us in a state of grace as we explore, with warmth and humor, this thing we call life. Now, here are Joan Newcomb and Janet Barrett.
Welcome to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. We're your co-host, Joan Newcomb, coming to you from Tacoma, Washington, and my partner, Janet Barrett, is under the weather today in Portland, Oregon. And I just want to let you know that we have a great guest today. Our topic is going to be money and consciousness, and our guest is Suzanne Lorenz. She's the author of Wealth and Wellbeing, and also the Wealth and Wellbeing Workbook. And she's a psychotherapist in successful retirement, an artist, and a longtime member of money support groups. And her websites are wealth-wellbeing.com and also followingthelightoftheunknown.com. And we will be bringing her on in just a moment, but we have some ways for you to go deeper with us, to connect with us beyond the show. And the first thing is we have a website. It is Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. And there you can listen to our podcasts. You can also access our websites, Janet's website and mine. You can read our blogs. We post our most recent blogs. Janet does hers on Mondays and I do mine on Fridays. And you can see our meetups. Janet does hers in Portland on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I do mine all around the Puget Sound. So I think my next meetup is in University Place on January 26th. So you can see me in University Place, or I'm doing a special meetup in Mercer Island on the 29th of January from 2 to 4, and that is 1 to 4, and that is on Mercer Island, and that is all about 2017 is the time of realization, and what are you going to manifest in your life? So I'll be talking about different ways to manifest and how we are all actually collectively manifesting from a greater awareness, and give you some tips and techniques to manifest from that higher awareness into physical reality. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And you can also, moving right along here, you can also access my YouTube videos and on YouTube, but also on the website. And you can also access the show via YouTube. So all the previous shows are on YouTube, and you can just binge listen to them on YouTube if that's your preferred form of social media. And let's see, we have a Conscious conference call coming up on Thursday, January 19th at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern. And that's for those of you who like to listen to the show and you don't get a chance to call in, or you wish you were part of our conversation. This is an opportunity for you to get up close and personal with Janet and myself. We have it in a small group format on a conference call. You can interact with us. You can ask us questions. And more importantly, when Janet brings you into heart space, you can really feel it in a very palpable way that you get the vibe when you're listening to the show. But this is broadcast to 190 countries. We have 35,000 subscribers. We've got, numerous listeners. So there's a bit of, the energy gets diffuse. So if you really want to have a great up close and personal hit, that is on Thursday, January 19th. We do this every month, the third Thursday of the month. And other ways to connect with us is on Facebook. Janet is on Facebook, Janet Barrett. I'm on Facebook, Joan Newcomb. The show is on Facebook, Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. And we're also on Twitter. The show is on Twitter at Joan and Janet is our Twitter handle. And mine is at Joan M. Newcomb. And I welcome you to follow me on Twitter because I have a lot of fun with that. And you will go places you never have gone before. So those are ways to get in touch with us and to stay tuned because there's a lot more coming up. But first, I'm going to bring our guest on today, Suzanne Lorenz. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Joan. Thanks for having me. I think this will be interesting. I always enjoy your perspective and your point of view, so it'll be an interesting conversation. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, well, I'm thrilled to have you. I was thinking about you the other day. You do such amazing things to do with money, and well beyond the books that you've written, which are Wealth and Well-Being, and also the Wealth and Well-Being Workbook, which have really great and fascinating exercises and ways to kind of clear your perspective about interacting with money, wouldn't you say?
Well, I hope so. I mean, that was the intent. That was the intent of the book. You know, it's difficult in this country or anywhere really if you don't have parents who are functional enough and understand money enough to teach you. It's difficult to find the way that works for you, and certainly it was for me, to find that way to have money be an asset rather than a problem. Certainly I grew up understanding that there was never enough, quote unquote, and it was a money consciousness that was lack. So, so in writing the book, my partner in life and in the book, Sam Beasley, and I decided to begin to do our knowledge and exploration about what is money and what is wealth, because they're not necessarily the same thing, and really spent quite a few years just educating ourselves, reading, and going to money support groups and doing our own particular journey towards money consciousness. So hopefully that I'm also a retired licensed clinical social worker, so I had a specific perspective. The first book is written for therapists, counselors, and helping professionals to come to terms with their own money consciousness and be able to understand that before they could recognize it in the people that they worked with. So that was the intent of the first book, and the second was a companion workbook. So and because I'm a therapist, I did a lot of work in writing the book to share my perspectives about the kinds of ways that we get blocked with money, and how is it that we don't all grow up, happy, joyous, and free with our having money work for us rather than against us. So hopefully it works. I think I've gotten really good feedback about for anybody who's ever read it or used the workbook. So thanks for asking.
Yeah, well, that is a very good point. And I remember I had you and your husband on my previous show when we talked about these books and how important is especially for therapists and counselors to clear their own stuff so that they can help people clear their stuff. And you were using a phrase that my ears caught, which was about money consciousness. And also you said that there's a difference between wealth and money. And so we're kind of easing up to the topic of my focus today, which is money and consciousness. But I think it's a lot of people do miss the point because they get very stuck on the money or having more money, and they miss out on the aspect of wealth in life.
Absolutely. It's our culture as well. I mean, certainly we live in the United States, and it's founded on a capitalistic principle, and commercialism and commerce are a big part of what makes America great. But it isn't necessarily, in my view, the actual money. I think you would agree that money is like a symbol, like many other people in the past have identified, that money is an energy and a symbol, and really more the means than the end. And until someone really understands what it is that they're trying to achieve and what end are we looking for, is it only material goods, which is fine, that's that's fine if that's your goal. Or is it peace? What are your values? What is it important to you? And what constitutes well-being? And that's the consciousness of how I certainly see money is useful, is being able to use the term or the symbol or the energy of money to gather that and achieve whatever goals or visions that a person has.
Yeah, so the energy of money, and you were talking about what it really means to people, and I think of what it feels like, and what people are really going for often is not like the numbers in their bank account, but more like the sense of peace or well-being, like you were talking about, or a sense of freedom, the freedom to be able to do anything they want. And
right.
Often it's like they get into effort trying to create the numbers in their bank account and don't realize that they really do have the freedom to travel or to achieve their vision in a way and they were keeping themselves from doing that based on the number part of it.
Right. I mean, the numbers are important. I mean, you kind of have to know what the numbers are. And certainly I've been recently speaking about it in terms of negotiable, non-negotiable things that we appreciate as human beings. Food, clothing, and shelter is always a good idea. Security and safety. And generally, that's how to provide for one's family if you decided to have children. So those are values that we are pretty traditional. But it doesn't end there, don't you think? I think there's more than that we as human beings are striving for. Certainly in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which are food, clothing, shelter, and there's a hierarchy that we're all striving for: a connection with others, and certainly art and spirituality.
Yes, and as you're describing that, I'm following the feeling, which feels more expansive as you go up in the sense of needs and expression to relationships and to art. It feels more expansive, and I was struck with this a long time ago that the lower paying jobs are the ones that require the most time and effort. When I was working, when I was working for $5 an hour or when I was working for $10 an hour, they were long hours. They were physically uncomfortable. And then you look at people who create larger sums of money in hourly terms, and there's a lot less effort. There might be more mental effort. They might be lawyers or something, but there's the energy of it's more effortless. And then you look at people who are, in the mega realms. I've been looking at some videos with Bill and Melinda Gates and Warren Buffett. Bill Gates talks about losing $60 million in a project for the Gates Foundation, and he didn't flinch. And so they're in that sort of a stratosphere of effortlessness. So there's something about the energy of wealth that has that same kind of expansiveness to it.
Yeah, so the only thing I would say is that it doesn't depend on the dollar that you could get that. I mean, many people could have and do work a minimum wage job and have an extremely abundant and wealthy life. And I just don't think we're taught how to do that, and how we can develop our sense of joy and gratitude, and how we can give service to others, which are extremely gratifying. How we can begin to understand what freedom is. That if freedom is only being able to have thousands of dollars to go on a trip to Jamaica, then that's difficult. Not that anybody can't or shouldn't want to do that, but there's lots of ways of manifesting freedom. Being able to walk in nature is probably one of the more freeing things that I can experience. So there's the ability to be able to understand what creates joy in our life sounds like it would be easy, but it's actually difficult. And I agree with you that working hard isn't necessarily the answer, but it is it is hard. But to make the leap between getting paid for what you do versus getting paid for what you know, it is a journey, and it's filled with lots of steps it's very rare that someone jumps from one to another. We usually kind of build and walk that journey.
Yes, I know what you mean. It's an evolution to get to that point.
Yes.
And it remind me that it's not about the dollars, because I remember somebody observing they'd gone to India and they saw more joy in the lives of these humble villagers that they didn't have running water or electricity, but they were very wealthy in terms of their family and the ultimate quality of life. And actually, I just realized I opened up a much bigger topic of conversation, and we're just about to take a commercial break. So we're we have to take a commercial break right now. You're listening to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. But stay tuned, because we're going to talk about money and consciousness with Suzanne Lorenz, and we'll be right back.
Is your soul calling you to do something more meaningful with your life? Do you feel crazy for wanting to quit your secure job? Perhaps you are waiting until you retire to do what you love. Maybe you are too daunted to follow your dream. If any of these match your life, then Joan Newcomb's Purpose and Passion Coaching Program is just for you. In just 12 weeks, you will discover who you essentially are and why you are here. Learn to live as your greater self and navigate with conscious mastery. Go to joan-newcomb.com. That's joan-newcomb.com for all of her coaching programs.
You are listening to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. To reach our program, please send questions and comments to consciouswithjoanandjanet@gmail.com. That's consciouswithjoanandjanet@gmail.com. Now, back to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet.
Welcome back. You're listening to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. I'm your host, Joan. Janet is off sick today, and we are talking about money and consciousness with Suzanne Lorenz. So, Suzanne, just before we went to our break here, we were talking about really quality of life and other aspects to do with money, and wealth was the topic we got into. And we touched a little bit on the energy of money, and I was wondering what your perspectives are about not just the energy of money, but money as consciousness, or money from the perspective of consciousness. Do you understand what I'm asking?
Not. Could you give me an example? I think I do. I'm pretty sure we're always usually pretty much on the same page, but would you mind giving me an example?
Well, this is something that I'm just exploring myself because it is in the process of expanding and shifting awarenesses, and so it feels like it's a difference beyond just the energy of money in terms of the energy and flow, but that money is actually an expression of consciousness. And
sure.
It's a manifestation of consciousness, but it's also like an expression into the world, just as any kind of creation or creative energy. What's your perspective?
Absolutely. I mean, I would maybe use different words, but it's the same concept. One of the, I think that until we can understand that in fact it is a flow, that it's, liquid after all, we consider money currency. So until we can really get into that consciousness that money is a tool and a means and a flow, and not just having it come in, but having it go out, whether we're contributing donation-wise or to other people, but the coming in, surprisingly, allowing money to come into our lives, it actually is more work than people think. First of all, we have a taboo in this culture that money is something, if you're rich, there's something wrong with you, that money is the root of all evil. We've all heard that one. So overcoming that prejudice, and then actually allowing things that money represents to come into our life, not just in being paid for what we're worth, but also believing that we all deserve to have a rich life, meaning a life full of purpose, and being able to share that with others. So I'm not sure exactly if that's what you mean, but that's kind of how I perceive what you're saying, that we have to be able to teach ourselves how to use money as a means rather than an end.
That's along the lines of where I'm traveling. It actually brought up some other things that I've been aware of in, money as a flow. And then the one thing that I woke up to a while back was this whole way that we use credit in this country. And for me, it was like free money. It's like credit allows you to get more than you actually have. And then the hidden part of it is that you actually spend more than the item was worth in the first place. And so I started seeing that the whole energy of debt and carrying debt, it was like a vortex. It was actually the opposite of, not money necessarily, but the opposite of abundance is what I saw. It was,
Well,
yeah.
Yeah, I understand what you mean. I always think that I agree with you, and also I think of it in terms of time. So using credit as a way of not being mindful or present of the future, of the present, but we are actually borrowing time. So if you I don't happen to use credit cards, but if you do choose to, when you use it, you're basically having an interaction or an agreement with the person that you're using it with that says, I'm pretending that this object or experience or travel that I'm exchanging this card for, that you're giving money for, is going to stay present, but really you're using up your future time because you're using up your future money. I'm not sure. So I think, yes, indebtedness is a very fascinating kind of idea, and think about it, we're actually not even using cash, we're using a plastic promise that we're getting from a corporation who's then telling us, well, we'll give you this moment, but in the future now you owe us not just your money, but your time, plus some of your earning power and, whatever interest.
Yeah, I remember when debit cards came out, and I felt this sense of relief because the debit card represented real money, something that was really there. And even as I'm saying that, I realized that there's a whole aspect of that isn't real. That isn't real because our monetary system is no longer based on just lumps of gold being held in somebody's cellar someplace. So all of that is can actually be very conceptual. I I had a question. You're a trained therapist, and so you probably have some more awareness behind this. But somebody was talking to me about money archetypes, and that was a very powerful method that they used to help people increase their abundance, was to interact with money as an archetype. And my brain went a little bit sideways on that because I didn't have any of those classes in college. So I'm wondering, what you think about the idea of money as an archetype and interacting with that in order to create more abundance.
Well, you always get some good ones, Joan. This is an archetype, of course, is from the Jungian philosophy that says that Carl Jung, who was this, I don't know that he was a therapist, but he was in the early stages of our learning about psychology, believed that people saw things in terms of symbols. And an archetype, of course, is a symbol that he used to describe certain states of being. And so we have the shadow side and the light side. And so I'm not a real extreme Jungian, but I understand the concepts and the way that I think you're describing it. We certainly live in presently with a strong shadow side, a strong shadow in our country. And so trying to understand where's the light through that might be a way that we can begin to determine that. And speaking of that, it was something I was thinking of before when you were talking, is when it comes to wealth in this country, we're so lopsided. And the symbology of that, I think, is significant. The 1% of the 1%. And I think that is a really distorted and kind of uneven distribution, obviously, but it's also in consciousness an uneven distribution of what's valuable. And I've been noticing as we go through the shock of the election and going into overcoming our prejudice about what's happening, is that people are kind of waking up. And I think that there's been a sleeping of whether it's a sleeping giant, I don't know, but in our consciousness, and that if we have any hope, we have to kind of wake up and begin to pay attention to the imbalance and disparaging, and also confront the shadow side of our fears around what's happening. So I'm not quite sure if I answered you, but that's what came to my mind.
Well, that was lovely because you brought up about 3 more topics. So, writing furiously as you're talking. You're talking about the uneven distribution, and I was thinking about the representation that is going on right now in terms of our impending inauguration and the choices that are being made for cabinet positions. And it's actually, it would be hilarious if this were a Saturday Night Live sketch in reality. And it's not hilarious because it's not. But it's almost like every person who was picked for something is actually in opposition to the thing that they're being picked for. And then
I think that's great. I mean, that's great. So, I mean, who could not wake up on that and observing that, And then the other thing is that every single one of them are multimillionaires, if not billionaires, and so they're in a level of the stratosphere that, I just mentioned Bill and Melinda Gates and Warren Buffett, and I believe those people are very conscious, very aware, and they're using their wealth for the well-being of the world. But then we've got other representations of people who are at that level of wealth that are disconnected. So I would say that they represent, and our president-elect represents, people who are poor in spirit. Mm-hmm. I think that's great. And also, we have to overcome the whatever prejudice or whatever mythology that we have that this means that where power is. Certainly, there's a kind of trying to be a shifting of power, and I think it's a way for us all to wake up to our own empowerment and to know that we actually do have some choices and freedoms, even if we're not a multi-billionaire. So I think that all of this is a process for people to begin to kind of wake up to their own empowerment and their own choices and working towards their own freedoms.
Yeah, and I'm in agreement with you, and I have slightly different words that I would use to describe it. But one of the things that I have been observing over the past several years is, and really you can look back, you can see it as an evolutionary process. And, you described it as waking up. I have a kind of a reverse way of seeing it. I see it as greater consciousness coming into form. So there's greater light coming into the world, greater light coming into each of us individually, and I identify with that light. So it's really the greater aspect of ourselves are coming in individually. And what happens then when we have that greater consciousness within us, it actually gives us more internal power. That's why I feel like a lot of people are actually waking up to this internal power. It's a sensation they haven't had before. And it also gives us each more individual responsibility. It's like we are creating our reality in the world and therefore are more responsible. And it's not responsible like there's a burden on our shoulders, but it's more that we have a stronger ability to respond and create in the world. Absolutely.
And kind of going along with that, and also with your previous question about archetypes, I'm just remembering some of them as we were talking, and one of the archetypes is of the ruler, which is the person who wants to be in control and powerful. But that's also the part of the archetypal consciousness, is that all of these things are within us, and so we have the ruler within us, and the power monger, as well as the magician, sage, I'm just looking them up, and the jester, all of these, the creator, which is a particular favorite of mine because I feel I'm an artist and I love the creative process. So, but we can use all of these archetypes to be able to come into consciousness and awareness so that we can be more effective in creating our own wealth, whether it's through money or through goods or through experiences or through creating and funding or creating our art in those kinds of ways.
Yes, I was also thinking, referring back to the person who did this, is that they might have actually been helping people work on an unseen level to connect to their personal angels or guides or devas, and in that perspective that there's actually an angel or deva of money, and that they would have a personal connection with that. I used to, and certain peripheral ways, still work with angels and guides, but I have an expanded perspective of it now, that it really is just working on a very high energetic realm. And that's, where I started with when I came up with the topic today, was about money and consciousness on that kind of high vibratory realm, and wondering how I could bring that down to earth, and here I am stuttering about it. And I felt that you and I have had such great conversations before, that you have maybe some ways of bridging that awareness. Am I being coherent?
Well, yeah, of course.
Great.
Yeah, you're perfectly clear. The thing that comes to my mind, John, is vision, which is a really important part of, as we all know, of manifestation. So that's what, if we're not clear what we want, we won't know what we're trying, how to get there. So, and the visioning is a really essential, certainly an important part of my life, and trying to let go of what I know and allow myself to imagine or to let the unknown. It's one of the reasons I am writing my blog about the unknown. It's really following the light of the unknown, because it's we have finiteness as human beings, and we are an end to ourselves as in a lot of ways if we aren't able to access something outside of ourselves, in however way that you can imagine it or manifest it. And for me, being able to do visioning work where I can release myself from my cognitive thinking and be able to, however way you describe it, allow my unconscious to move forward, or to, I think we were talking about allowing out of the blue experiences to happen, things that I can't imagine happening because I can't know it for sure. The future is certainly one of those things. And the struggle between believing that if I can vision it, it can come true, that kind of struggle is very present for me. And certainly that's one of the reasons I like writing about it, because I think it might be a universal conflict. So how my life is a complete manifestation of a vision that I could never have imagined. It's even better than I could have imagined it. So I have certainly more actual money or security, or however you want to describe that, than I would have imagined, and a happy and joyful life, and a lot of freedoms, and I'm able to manifest many of my values. So, but that was necessary for me to suspend what I know, which is how I grew up, which was from a blue-collar family, and a dependent female that was only possibility was for any kind of freedom was to marry or be with a man. So that's completely, that was what I knew, and that there was never enough money. So that was what I knew. So it's only through study and consciousness and visioning that I could follow a different kind of path. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and you brought up again several different things, but I was thinking about vision, and visioning is a way of communicating to consciousness in a way that consciousness communicates to us. So a lot of people meditate, and they're meditating for decades because they want to hear the word of God, and they don't realize that all the visions or dreams that they're getting at night is the communication. And I know when people are struggling with, intense survival issues, it's very hard to have a vision, or the only vision that they have is a winning lotto ticket. And so there's something about getting to the point of being able to have a vision indicates that you've gotten out of the shadows and into some clarity. And yeah. I liked what you were talking about, how you couldn't have imagined, or that the life that you're having now is bigger than you can imagine. When I do my meetups and I do some manifestation techniques for folks, or I teach them how to do these manifestation techniques, I talk about the importance of having an open mind. And also, people who do a lot of law of attraction things, and the thing they find is that they set intentions and they do this law of attraction, and then the things that they've manifest always end up having loopholes. And I say, well, it's because the mind that sets the intention is the one that is coming from the point of view that there is a problem. So exactly. You're coming from this sort of set of mental limitations, and the letting go of that, releasing those expectations, allows that mystical aspect to come in and manifest something that you couldn't have imagined before.
Absolutely. That's a great way of putting it. That's great. We all vision things. We just maybe don't take it seriously. Daydreaming is great, visioning. And I think in our country in my experience, I don't know, daydreaming was not necessarily a good thing. Usually it was something that was frowned upon. But I think I think that's the only possible way that we can get beyond what we know, is by allowing ourselves to do what you were just describing. But then there's another part of it too. And in our book, we have one chapter called Bringing Life to Your Vision. You have a vision, and then you have a way then we have a plan to how to, first of all, let the allowing happen. So clearing away the path to allowing it, as well as whatever footwork or whatever steps and plans we need to make to have that happen.
And that's the aspect of bringing the vision into physical reality. And so I feel like it's an interesting dance with the unseen that we do, because we do need to do the footwork, and we do need to provide some of the structures that allows for clarity. And then we also have to be open for consciousness to come in and to come through.
Right.
It's a letting go of control in that aspect.
Right. Boy, and don't we just love that? Nobody likes that. I think that's practice, right? It's practice. Whatever way you vision your spiritual world, faith is always part of it, the unknown and the unseen. And, it's scary. It's scary to live in the unknown and the unseen with faith that it will manifest or clear up or become clear. So I think that just takes practice, in whichever way that your belief system takes you to practice it.
That was bringing up for me something that I was just reading recently, and it was an article about how we need to get comfortable with uncertainty. Because so many unknowns are happening, so many out of the blue and unexpected and inexplicable, crazy making things are happening, and we need to develop ways to be able to be flexible with it, but also be able to live with uncertainty. Maybe it's like a Buddhist practice, really, to have. And how can we go forward with a sense of certainty and in this uncertain world?
Wow, yeah, it's a good one. I think possibly one of the things is that generally uncertainty is linked with being a victim, which meaning things, when you're a victim, you don't get to choose what happens. But really, what you're describing is going forward with a sense of empowerment and confidence that the uncertainty will then eventually clear up, and then we would not be feeling as if we're victimized or victims. Certainly everybody today, as we're moving towards, well, not everyone, certain people with certain belief systems have fears about the future of our country. But, we have to, I do every day, my practice is to understand that my uncertainty doesn't have to evoke fear, but it can bring about faith that things are moving in the perfect direction.
Yes, and when I step back to my greater perspective that consciousness is coming into form and that we at essence are consciousness, I can see how manifestation is coming more quickly. The other thing I notice is as greater consciousness comes into form, it's almost like the programming in the game breaks down, and we're no longer confined by scripts. And suddenly, life becomes an improvisational. And if you think about thoughts becoming things, manifestation is happening more quickly, and so what we're thinking about is reflecting in our reality. So, all those people that went to see the movie Idiocracy, thank you for this reality.
Yeah.
and changing our way of seeing things also changes our reality. We don't have to react to the insanity when we can step back and have a more serene perspective.
Absolutely. I think it just takes, practice, whether it's affirmations or finding ways to ground oneself, to surround ourselves with like-minded, positive people, to do the action steps that empower us. There's many ways. Meditation, and certainly I'm a big advocate of yoga. A yoga practice can help me ground and get in touch with mind, body, spirit faster than anything. But many people have lots of different ways. Just this conversation and having conversations with others who are on a curiosity path of how can we be more effective to manifest the things that are important for human beings and the planet.
Yes, it's definitely a collective evolution, and we're helping all of us de-energize our limiting perspective is what I'm seeing. Mm-hmm. Well, we're coming to another commercial break here, so I want to let folks know that you're listening to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet, and I'm Joan here, and Janet's not here, but I am talking about money and consciousness with Suzanne Lorenz, and we will talk more about this when we come right back.
Would you like a fresh approach to the challenges you are dealing with? Take a journey into your enlightenment with Janet Barrett. Janet is a subtle energies empath accessing the field of potential with warmth, humor, and support. She will help you to hear what your inner voice is saying. She will share with you how to appreciate who you are now and offer you new ways to understand and transform your issues. Reach her at www.janetandbeyond.com. That's janetandbeyond.com. Again, janetandbeyond.com. Transformation is possible. You can enjoy new outcomes in your current experiences. They can happen in the blink of an eye.
You are listening to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. To reach our program, please send questions and comments to consciouswithjoanandjanet@gmail.com. That's consciouswithjoanandjanet@gmail.com. Now, back to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet.
Welcome back. You're listening to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. I'm your host, Joan. Janet's not here today, and I am talking about money and consciousness with my guest, Suzanne Lorenz. So we're sliding into home here. Suzanne, do you have anything else that we haven't talked about? Any thoughts arising that would be helpful for our listeners to know?
Thanks. It went by fast. I always would want to advocate for people to connect with other people and and to have these kinds of conversations and to understand that we need to use our time, the things we spend, our time, money, and energy to foster the visions and values that we hold. And it's very difficult to do this alone and by ourselves. So joining money groups, joining book groups, joining your group, one of your Conscious Conversations group. I think it's a very useful way to connect with others. And if you're an uber introvert, which is some of us are, to do that, we have so many opportunities now, online or on the internet, to actually connect with like-minded or people, and communication in that level. Certainly, it's a task to continue to practice being present and mindful and putting our values and our visions forward. But I think it's certainly important. At least it is for me. So I think that is what I wanted to say.
That's great. I was realizing it's like as we connect with other people and talk about these things, it allows us to come out of the shadows, our self-imposed shadows, really. And the more that we talk about these things, it comes to light. And the whole issue of money has been such a taboo subject for years. And just talking about it just de-energizes the shame and the misinformation. So those are great suggestions. So thank you so much for those suggestions. And so, Suzanne, I want to let people know how they can find out more about you. They can find your books, Wealth and Wellbeing, and also the Wealth and Wellbeing Workbook. Those are on your website, wealth-wellbeing.com, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you.
And then your blog is Following the Light of the Unknown, and that's both your photographs and now your writing. Is that correct?
Right. I do have various websites. My art, photography. I'm a photographer as well, but I think if you just Google me, you can find those. But the blog is my newest love. So yeah, that's www.followingthelightoftheunknown.com.
That's great. So, thank you so much for being on the show. It was wonderful. You brought in a whole new resonance into our morphic field. So I really appreciate your insights.
Well, thank you for asking me, Joan. It was really fun and it's a pleasure to talk to you.
And I want to let folks know how to go deeper with us after the show. And actually, first I want to let people know what next week's show topic is. Janet will hopefully be back on her feet again and on the show. We're going to be talking about resisting help and working as a team. So we feel like we have to do everything ourselves, and that accepting help is a weakness, or that nobody does it as expertly as we do. And so what is the greater awareness of this as consciousness? So stay tuned, because Janet and I will be delving in to the underlying cause and the new emerging paradigm. And ways to connect with us, to go deeper beyond the show. A reminder that our website is www.consciousconversationswithjoanandjanet.com. And there you can listen to our podcasts. You can access our individual websites, Janet's website, my website. You can also read our blogs. Janet does hers on Mondays and mine comes out on Fridays. You can find out about our most recent meetups. Janet does hers on Tuesdays and Thursdays from the comfort of a very artistic and lovely home in Portland. And my meetups are around the Puget Sound. I do them in Seattle, Bellevue, Tacoma, and University Place. And I actually have a special one coming up this month as well on Mercer Island. So you can find out the details about that. And you can also subscribe to us on YouTube. The show is on YouTube, and I am also on YouTube. I do a weekly YouTube video on all these different topics that we cover. You can also ask us on Facebook. So if you like to hang out on Facebook, we like to hang out on Facebook. Janet is Janet Barrett on Facebook, and I am Joan Newcomb on Facebook, and the show is Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. You can follow us on Twitter at Joan and Janet on Twitter, and I'm on Twitter at Joan M. Newcomb. Let me see if there's anything else. Oh, yes. Once a month, Janet and I do a conscious conference call, and we do it on the third Thursday of the month. So this coming Thursday, it's January 19th. It's 7 p.m. Pacific and 10 p.m. Eastern. You can find out on our website about connecting. What you need to do is give us your email, and we'll send you the phone number and conference call number. But this is an opportunity for you to get close and personal with us and experience the heart space, experience the communication of higher consciousness, and be able to get a word in edgewise and have direct conversation with us, because it is hard. A lot of people have a hard time calling into the show live or just sensing the stronger vibration as it is broadcast over the airwaves. So that's a Conscious Conference Call. That's on Thursday, January 19th at 7 p.m. Pacific. And a quick reminder about the meetups that I do have coming up. My one in University Place is on Thursday, the 26th. It's at 6:30. It's at the University Place Library, which is right next to Whole Foods in University Place, which is south of Tacoma, folks. Don't get confused about that, up in Seattle. And then the other one that I'm doing is at the Mercer Island Library, and it is a talk because 2017 is the year of actualization. It is the year of realization. And what are you going to manifest? So I'll be diving more into this topic about greater consciousness coming into the world and how we are manifesting things more quickly than ever before. So change is happening instantaneously. It is possible to completely transform your reality from the way you have been living before. And we will get into that. I will talk about some specific techniques as well to help you navigate your life from this higher perspective. So that is going to be on Sunday, January 29th. It'll be at the Mercer Library. I believe it's actually from 1 until 3. And you can find out more about that on our website at www.consciousconversationswithjoanandjanet.com. So thank you all for listening. I want to say that there is no time or space as consciousness, so it doesn't matter whether you've caught this show live or whether you're listening to it on YouTube or in the podcast in the future. You are actually co-creating this experience right now. So we really appreciate you, and we'd like to thank you all for joining us as Consciousness Expressing and Evolving. You've been listening to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. I'm your host, Joan Newcomb. Janet will be back with us next week. And so tune in next week, same time, same channels.
You've been listening to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. And thanks so much for helping to co-create the show, no matter if you're listening live or on demand. You energetically contribute to our collective experience. Joan and Janet love to hear from you and invite you to email your comments and ideas for them to explore each week. Contact them at consciouswithjoanandjanet@gmail.com. Tune in next week for another great show, and until then, keep enjoying this wonderful adventure we call life.